Let's have a look. Yeah, so we are live, Mike Samuels. Dude, thank you. That was very serious. Thanks for joining us, man. I'm excited. I've followed your work for years. In fact, I think I met Paul Mort 7 years ago, and I'm sure he was talking about you then.
Yeah, I've been connected with Paul probably about that long, to be honest. Yeah, certainly. I went to one of his seminars. I think it was about 2014, and I remember because he referenced my nipples in a room full of fitness professionals. So yeah, that stuck with me.
That sounds like Paul. Yeah, he always speaks very highly of you. So I think since that point, when Paul references someone, we usually pay attention and kind of see who it is. And yeah, I even read your emails, dude, which is rare. I don't read many emails, and I still read yours, man. Hence me not asking you to share this podcast because I got your email the other day.
Yeah. Well, at least, yeah, there you go. Obviously, yeah, that's proof that you read them. So I appreciate it.
I read them, man. Yeah, you say you don't go on many podcasts. Is that they just bore the shit out of you now and you've got better things to do?
I think it's because I know that for me, I'm probably kind of your archetypal introvert in that I can definitely do podcasts and stuff, but it takes me no effort whatsoever to sit down the laptop and do some work in silence. But it takes me I don't have a pump up routine, but it takes me a bit more energy to do anything kind of with audio or video. So I tend to make sure that I don't say yes to too many. And also, to be honest, I tend to say yes to the ones that are a bit different, really. Not that I've got anything against saying the same stuff over and over again, but oftentimes it's a bit like if you're getting asked all the time, like, what's the benefit of email marketing and that kind of stuff? I'm happy to talk about that, but you just get a bit bored of your own voice sometimes. So I tend to be a bit pickier, really, shall we say?
No, that's cool because I've got no questions here on email marketing whatsoever, dude. So it's probably one of the last things I want to talk about. Hence me not being very good at it. But your Instagram is, I love it. It's awesome. Again, I don't really follow many profiles on Insta, but yours is really cool. And something that always sticks out to me is like your message is always about selling ethically, and it's in everything that I've seen you do and every content that you've put out and any course that you've released that I've consumed. That message is always in there. Like, has that always been important to you, or did you learn from watching other people not do it in an ethical manner? And why is that so important?
I think just because I don't massively like trying really hard to sell stuff to people. It's just not really me. I certainly tried to do that when I was a personal trainer years ago. Not that I kind of learned any sales scripts or anything, but just I tried to copy what other people did, and it always just felt a bit unnatural. So I've had phases where I've learned from other people who've been a lot more direct with how they try and sell, and it's just not really vibed with me that much. And I just found that not that I massively care about strangers on the internet and their opinions, but I got a lot more flack for doing that. It wasn't necessarily any more effective. And certainly nowadays, I think that I want to work with people who want to work with me, not people who feel like they've just been triggered by a certain line, or they've just done it because you've sent 6 emails in one day to try and push someone over the line. So yeah, it's much more because I value people wanting to work with me for yes, there's copy and marketing that goes out and stuff, but yeah, I don't really want anyone to feel like they've been tricked into working with me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. So what's your background in PT then? Where did you learn your PT course, and what sales skills did they teach you back in the day? I don't remember being taught any at PT school of sales, or if it was just approach a person, tell them they're doing something wrong and that you will correct them for £25 an hour.
Yeah, I don't think I was taught anything on the actual course. It more came the first job I had doing PT was in a gym, and it was a gym in South London. It was, I'd say, probably 50% of the PTs were, I suppose, what you'd say like your typical kind of early 20s guys from South London who got a job as a PT, were in decent shape, kind of thought they were all that. So they had the gift of the gab and the swagger. And I tried to sort of copy what they were doing, which for someone who is pretty mild-mannered, fairly introverted, I was a few years younger than them at the time as well, because I was only 18 when I first started doing that. It just didn't really fit. But yeah, I started doing PT, I think it must have been January 2009, I think, which is quite terrifying that it was that long ago. But yeah, that was where it all started. And yeah, just I didn't like how you had to sell yourself on the gym floor for that. And I think that certainly put me off the quote unquote sales stuff for certainly some time.
How long were you in that game for, in the PT game?
So I was at that gym in London for about 18 months. And then I moved back home in Southampton and I built up a mobile PT business, which actually I much preferred. So I got most of my leads were actually more like inbound leads. So I got pretty good at SEO, local SEO, which at the time was very easy to do. And then I built that up from sort of halfway through about 2010. And I was doing that until I was still doing some of it in about 2016. So 2016, I'd been getting into copy as well, and I was doing more online fitness stuff. But yeah, I was doing it for about 6 years, full time between 2012 and 2013. Was super busy with that. So yeah, the whole thing's just been a gradual transition. Really, there's been very little grand plan going into it, but I think I'm still to date. I've worked in fitness longer than I've worked in copy so far. So that's still been not my main source of income in terms of total revenue, but it's been the thing that I've done for longest in my life, I guess.
Yeah, because I remember one of the emails that was always spoken about in the PT world from Mr. Moore, especially was your email about how you can get like shredded eating pizza and ice cream or something like that, which I think was one of the emails that kind of took off, you know, with the bold headline. And you were one of the first trainers, I think, that was talking about this flexible way of eating. And yeah, I mean, that must have been 5, 6, 7 years ago that you were producing emails like that were going out. They were quite refreshing, actually.
I think, yeah, it would have been about 2013. Not just because I still don't think I'd had a lot of training in marketing and copy back then, but I'd certainly started consuming a bit more. And I was much more into the writing side of things. So I was writing articles. I had a side gig doing stuff for the Livestrong website. I was consuming Paul's stuff. There are a few other people who I was following. And yeah, it was more, I think nowadays you get a lot more people who do stuff like that. And it's much more, they'll try and entertain as well as educate. But I hate saying about I was one of the first to do things because you just sound like a bit of a dick. But yeah, I think I didn't, not because I was super smart or anything. I just thought, well, it makes sense to me to actually write articles that are conversational, that have an attention grabbing headline, that aren't just 5 ways to get a bigger bench press, and to include some story in there. So it was no, like I said, there was no kind of super smart plan behind it. It was just, this is the kind of stuff I like to read. Let me put some stuff out there. And yeah, there was some luck with it as well. Like you say, that the one article I had that got like 130,000 views in one day, just because it got shared by a lot of people. And I think you need that kind of, those lucky breaks as well. But that just again showed me that actually people don't want to read boring stuff. They want to read stuff that has some story in there, is a bit controversial maybe, and they want to read stuff as well that aligns with their views and beliefs, and actually they know that it might also piss some other people off.
Yeah, I think that's a challenge for most PTs, because like myself, and you know, I focus heavily on coaching. My skill isn't really in email writing, so zoning in on different skills like that can be quite challenging. But again, going through your Insta, I mean, I knew you were into your endurance and your running, but dude, I didn't know how fucking good you were at it. So 53.5 miles ran in 8 hours 42 minutes. That was at Winchester Castle. And then you did the solo equinox, which this is insane. You did 124 miles in 25.5 hours. Yeah, what's the motivation behind putting your mental and your physical body through that kind of grueling challenge?
People have asked me that quite a bit the last few months. I still don't really have a polished answer for it. It was probably because, I guess there's a few reasons. One, I'm definitely naturally more suited to endurance stuff than strength and power anyway. So I've done a few powerlifting competitions in my time, competed in a physique competition once, which wasn't massively enjoyable, but just ticked it off the bucket list, I guess. But anytime I've started to get back into running, it's just kind of come a bit more naturally, really. Not to any massive level where I've ever been that great at it, but it's just been, yeah, endurance wise, I can kind of just keep going, really. And then, like a lot of people in the first lockdown, I just got bored of doing bodyweight lunges and press ups and burpees and just thought, well, I've got a bit of time to kill. Why not get back into the running? Did a half marathon just over a year ago, I think, and then thought, well, I might as well try a marathon next. And I was actually listening to a podcast with Ross Edgley, and he said that someone had said to him, I'm going to try a marathon. And Ross went, well, that's great, but did you know that if you do a bit longer than a marathon, it's an ultra marathon? I was like, okay, that's pretty smart, because actually an ultra marathon sounds a lot cooler. So I thought I'll start looking for some ultras. And then I was actually, I had a bit of a bad knee over Christmas last year and I couldn't run at all. And I thought I need a goal to work towards and to get me motivated again. Was looking around and thought, oh, okay, there's a 24-hour run. Let's sign up for that and see how it goes. Obviously, in order to do that, you kind of need to have a bit more endurance background and a bit more experience of doing races and stuff. So yeah, I signed up for the Winchester one that was just over a double marathon. I did another one that was called a backyard event, where it's kind of last runner standing type format. And I did the 24 hours there, but then, yeah, it was all building up to that bigger one. And I suppose it's more just because I think, firstly, why not? Like, it's a bit cliche to say, but you could get hit by a bus tomorrow, and it's a bit morbid, but you could lose the use of your legs. So while you can do it, why not go out and run 100 odd miles? And also, just I quite like doing stuff that other people, you tell them that you've done it and they go, yeah, that's crazy. Why would you do that? And I just quite like that response as well. And it's just to see what you can do, really, physically and mentally, I guess.
Yeah, mate, it's crazy. I mean, Ross Edgley's he's built like a brick shit house. He's huge, and you're not a small dude either. So you never put these two things together. You know, big dude does 125 miles. It just doesn't match. A bit like, you know, you're saying powerlifting. And then kind of it strikes me the same as the PT and to the copywriter. They're both quite extreme differences, and you seem to be quite good at both of them, which is frustrating.
I'd say that I've always favoured being good at multiple things rather than great at one or two things, and part of that's probably just because of attention span as well. Like, my attention span is not bad, but I do get bored relatively easily of certain things, and I just like being able to do lots of different stuff, really. And I suppose that, again, it's been like, I've been in gyms before where you've had great powerlifters, but they've been in there and it's been 4 or 5 sessions a week, 3 hours a time. They're always beat up, they're always working around an injury. I didn't really want to get like that. Likewise, you see runners who are much better than me, but they're my height, 60 kilos soaking wet, you know, wouldn't know a bicep if it hit them in the face. And likewise, I don't want to be like that. So not there's anything wrong with that, obviously, but just for me, I'd rather be kind of middle ground, be pretty good at running, be a bit better than your average gym lifter. Don't need to win any medals or whatever. Just want to be generally fit, generally strong, able to do stuff without too much prep. Yeah, that's just, I suppose, the way I like to do things, really.
Yeah, I haven't managed to master that. You know, when you want to be one of those guys that, you know, if your mate says, do you want to come for a 10K run, you can go, yep. And then, do you want to do some heavy squats? Yeah, I can do a bit of that. And it's nice to have that all round performance, because, again, typical meathead, kind of like, you're either, you know, trying to get bigger and stronger, or you're doing the exact opposite and getting skinnier and running. So the fact that you can, that you managed to do both is pretty cool. But there's something to be said for mental health as well, about discovering, you know, a lot about yourself, that you can grind out something that sounds horrendous. So like the idea of running 124 miles does sound pretty grim, but I can imagine the grit and the resolve that you build doing something like that is pretty rewarding and good for the mind.
It's certainly one of those where after doing that, nothing else feels as difficult as that. Certainly nothing day to day, as in you don't get as stressed out by an email from an awkward client, or a heavy workload doesn't feel too bad, because ultimately, would you rather be having to run another 10 miles and you've already done 110, or would you rather be sitting in a coffee shop answering a slightly challenging email? You know, it puts stuff in perspective. But I certainly think it develops the resilience muscle to a degree. And also, just even from the training standpoint, a lot of the training is fairly boring, but actually a massive benefit for me when you get into ultras is that you can't really just go out and run on roads the whole time, just because most ultras incorporate trail into them. So you want to get out on the trails. Also, that amount of road running is not great for knees and ankles and stuff. So you want to be able to go out and do some hills and some paths, so you're not always pounding the concrete. And actually the mental health benefits of getting out into the countryside, and I've lived around the same area for all but 2 years of my life when I was in London, actually seeing a lot of the countryside that I'd never seen before, even though it's only 5-10 miles down the road. That's been really cool as well. So that was another benefit, or actually, yeah, you don't always want to go out for your long run on a weekend, but once you're half an hour into it in the middle of the countryside, no one else around, yeah, there's a lot to be said for that as well, I think, from a mental health standpoint.
So in terms of creativity then, Mike, do you use these runs and training kind of challenges to switch off from your work and from ideas and from being creative, or do you actually tap into it and find that like some good ideas hit you when you're out away from your laptop and away from your phone?
I never try to actively think of content or think up ideas and stuff when I'm running, just because that might work, but I've just never tried it really. For me, it's definitely more about trying to switch off. And I would say that I manage that relatively effectively. It's certainly rare that I'll come back from a run and feel either physically or mentally worse than when I went out. But I think that without trying to force it, actually, yeah, you can go out with a problem in your head and you don't actively try and think of how to solve it, but you'll often come back and you'll either have an idea for solving it, or actually you realize it's not as big of a problem a lot of the time. So whether or not it work as well, if you kind of officially tried to use any form of exercise, I suppose, as like creativity or whatever, I don't know. But I guess the other benefit is that actually it's given me some content. There's a lot of parallels between the physical exertion stuff and like building a business, writing copy, all that kind of thing. So I certainly don't run just to get ideas for emails, but it's a bit of a side benefit that doesn't hurt, I suppose.
Yeah, definitely. I always, when I'm trying to come up with ideas for anything really, when I sit there and say I'm going to come up with ideas for something, it never really flows. It never really happens. It's usually when I'm not actively trying, or someone says something. And I thought, yeah, the challenge I've found, Mark, and I don't know if you'll be able to shed some light on this one. When you're thinking about content and what emails to write, like every film you watch, every conversation you have, you start to think about picking out headlines and topics. And it kind of took me away from a little bit of the enjoyment of switching off. So I found it hard to kind of ingest the information that I was watching and use it in a positive way without kind of letting it take over my brain and like, oh, suddenly I can't enjoy this film. I'm just thinking about fucking emails to write. So like, how do you balance this, like switching off to being creative? You know, how do you get creative, and how do you come up with some of your best ideas?
I'd certainly say that actually when people are starting out, I often do advise them to watch a film with that in mind, knowing that, as you say, it will affect the quality of your viewing. You know, if there's something you really want to watch, probably don't watch it actively trying to think up email ideas. But I would say if you try to learn that skill for a bit, you get much better at it naturally, and then the ideas just sort of tend to come to you. So a lot of the time I will say to people, yeah, try and do it for a bit. You'll learn it as you do any skill, and then actually you'll just find that you'll be sitting there watching something, you'll get an idea, just have a notepad next to you if you need to, write something down, back to the film. So I suppose it's teaching yourself kind of to switch off as well, which feels weird because so many people just their default is switch off. But I think when you work for yourself, or even if you work for someone else but you're trying to build a business, that mindset completely flips, and actually you really have to try and switch off sometimes. So even if people need to almost have a routine in order to switch off, I don't think that's a bad idea. It's certainly not something I've got figured out completely. I still struggle with it from time to time. I find that I'm much better when I think, right, I'm going to be completely off social media for 4 or 5 weeks, not even check anything, not even check messages. I might schedule a couple of posts, but generally I don't tend to bother. So even for me, I find that, yeah, there's a definite correlation between the more I'm on in the day, the more difficult it is to switch off. So I think even, and I know this is kind of going out of the scope of just like sitting down to watch a film, but even if you almost periodize a year in terms of, okay, February, I'm going to have 3 weeks off social media and I'm only going to check email once a day. And I'm going to try and keep my screen time below 45 minutes a day or something, and try and build in a few of those throughout the year. That's probably not a bad idea in my book in terms of just helping you switch off.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. I mean, I don't know how often you do that, but some of the stuff I'm studying quite heavily at the minute is, you know, how much information we can actually handle. And the fact that we're taking in so much information that we're actually finding it hard now to create, because, you know, we've only got so much bandwidth, and it's like, yeah, I can resonate with that. So the idea, that concept that you've just mentioned, you know, something I don't have the social media apps on my phone or anything. It's just all on the Mac. Little things like that is trying to free up enough space to become creative, because like I say, I find when there's so much information, it's a bit stifling. So is this something like, is this a regular occurrence for you then? Do you often have these kind of gaps in your diary where you say, like, be disciplined enough to go 3 weeks without social media? Is this common, or when you just feel like you need it?
I should definitely plan it more, if I'm honest. I think that I've done 3 in the last year. One was about this time last year. I did another one in about February time, and then I think I did a 3-week one in about June, I want to say. Yeah, I should do more of them, if I'm honest. I think that a good plan, well, I'm not sure what a good plan would be, because I've not actually experimented enough, but I would say my goal for next year is probably to only spend about 75% of the time on social media. So every 3 months, try and book a month off, if that makes sense. Just, I think, or no, that'd be every 4 months, wouldn't it? I don't know, my maths has gone, but whatever, every few months, have about 4 weeks off would be not a bad plan, really.
Yeah.
Because what you find is that actually the world doesn't end when you do that. Anyone who needs you still gets in touch with you. I make it very clear to people that, look, I don't really answer questions on social media that much, or if I do, it's entirely on my terms. So if you want me, you've got to email me, and I'll still check email when I'm off. But yeah, a lot of the time, actually, people think, oh, I have to be on social media for my business. Probably don't, to be honest. I mean, if you're running your own ads, then yeah, there's an argument for that, but you don't have to check the news feed at all for that. You can just go into your ads manager. And then I would say that if you are really pushing your business through social media, even with that, you can put something in place so that actually you limit your time on it, whether it's a newsfeed blocker, whether you have some sort of timer, whether you just, like I do, I'm just strict with myself. I just think, right, from this date to this date, I'm not going to go on. And that tends to work. But yeah, there are very few people who wouldn't massively benefit from that.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, I think the newsfeed blocker is one of the best things I've installed on my Mac. So I haven't seen a newsfeed for probably over a year now, so which is great. And plus, it's like when I'm speaking to you now, like I had a quick look at your Instagram and stuff, but it helps create conversation as well, because a lot of people know everything about everyone because they put everything on social media. So it kills conversation. I'm just going to come out and say it, man. I think 90% of people are really fucking addicted to their phones. You know, I've been out with friends recently, and it's, you know, it's almost like they're not there because they're checking their phones and stuff, but like there's something like uber important. But it's weird. I just had a week in Iceland and turned my phone off for a whole week, and I actually got quite anxious turning it back on. I didn't want to return to the chaos of social media, because for all good kind of like efforts, I think a lot of people try to contain their use of it. But these apps are smart, man. So for me, I have to go a little bit more hardcore and just say, look, it's off the phone. You know, have some hard rules. Otherwise, just trying not to go on it when it's so conditioned just to click that damn F button on your phone, it's too hard. So I think I love that idea of kind of scheduling in specific time to give yourself breaks. And then do you, like you say, do you still like actively work exactly what like you would do as normal there, Michael? Do you take more time to train and relax and spend time with the partner and all sorts, or is it business as normal without social media?
I'd say it's pretty much business as normal, mostly because I don't spend a lot of time on it anyway. I know that every bit adds up, but it's certainly, for me, it's probably about 40 to 50 minutes a day, most days on social media. But even with that, actually, that's quite a lot of time over a week and over a month. So I just found that when I do it, actually, everything else gets done quicker. And it's those bits where, as much as I'm conscious of it, you'll be working on something. Maybe I'm writing an email and I get stuck on a certain bit, and your default response is to go, I'm stuck on this, so I'm going to go and browse social media. It might only be for a minute, but then that, I think the procrastination time of thinking, should I try and work through this, or should I go and do something else, i.e. waste time on social media? That's a minute. Your browsing time is another minute, and then it takes you 3 or 4 minutes to get back into it. So it's surprising to me how much time I felt I actually saved by not being on social media. And yeah, like you say, the anxiety thing, I found that every time I did it, was quite odd, because I initially had said I'd do it for 3 weeks. And in that first week, it was anxiousness over, are people going to be contacting me? What if I have a customer who's got a question, they've not emailed, they've sent it through Messenger or Instagram, whatever. Then it was much more weeks 2 and 3. We're thinking, oh, I'm looking forward to getting back on because I've got lots of ideas for content. And then it became, actually, I really don't want to go back on. Not necessarily because I was dreading an influx of stuff, more just because I thought it's actually just not that important, really. That's just not, I've not missed it, to be honest. So
Yeah, I know. I felt exactly the same. Like I say, it was a little bit. Well, it was a bit of relief actually when I turned my phone off. Like, you know, when it's great, you know, no answering emails, no answering WhatsApps, no answering Facebooks for a week. But then that minute before you turn your phone back on, and you know it's like re-entering the rat race kind of thing. But like you say, most people will claim they need to be on social media for their business. But I'd argue that, like, I'm not sure that many people are productive on it anyway. So yeah, you might be spending time on it. But I'd love to break it down a little bit more and have a look at, well, you know, how do we actually use these platforms? Are we on there to produce content, or are we just searching through shit? How much time are we wasting? So like I say, if someone does an hour a day, which is pretty common on social media, very common to waste an hour a day on social media, you add that up over a year, and a lot of these business owners will be complaining about lack of business, lack of leads and stuff. And you think that hour dedicated, so I do these focus blocks where I have to turn my phone off, turn my Wi-Fi off. It's phenomenal what you can get done in an hour when you go sniper, when you go in on that single task, and like that's all you do. It's actually quite frightening. Like, you've got nowhere to run, you've got no distractions. When you get stuck, which is at the point I would normally get distracted as well, it's like no. It's 1 hour dedicated to this task. You get so much shit done, man. You realize that you can do in 2 hours what you used to do in a day, and you could probably go part-time and get way more shit done than if you were full-time being distracted every 20 minutes.
yeah, and I think that it's something that before thinking of it in a social media sense, I heard of it. There's a very famous copywriter called Eugene Schwartz, and what he used to do was, I forget the exact timings, but I'm sure he used to set a timer for 33 and a half minutes. It might have even been 33 minutes, 33 seconds. And he would just, basically in that time, he could do two things. He could write, or he could sit and stare at the wall. And for him, writing was actually writing on a page or a typewriter, because this was before laptops and computers. And then I think he would have a 5-minute break, and he would try and do 5 of those blocks in a day. And so I suppose that was sort of the original version of doing kind of your modern blocks of turning a phone off and stuff. So I was aware of the concept, but yeah, I'd agree with that. And I think you have to have a plan in place. And certainly in terms of social media and staying off that, you have to have other systems. I mean, I say that people don't need social media as much as they think they do. Clearly, if you've got no email marketing, if you're not running any paid marketing, if you're not doing anything like that, then yeah, you may have to be on. But I would say my argument then is, well, set up some ways that you don't have to be on social media. Like, I don't think running everything through social is a good idea anyway, just because, well, as we've seen more and more probably in the last couple of years or so, actually you can get your account shut down, you can be kicked off platforms. So it's just not a smart way to run a business. So I love social media from a business perspective. I think networking with people, certainly from my perspective, it's been a net benefit. I don't think it's been that way for everyone. I think for a lot of people, it's been a net negative. But as much I think can beneficial, I just think it's probably a smart move to try and get off it anyway.
Yeah, I agree. I think distraction comes about often, one, when we don't kind of plan these time blocks in, and secondly, sometimes I've coached guys that have had these time blocks, you know, with all good intentions. But I think you've got to be clear what you're going to do in those time blocks as well, because the worst thing you can do in a time block is sit there and go, right, what shall I do today? So that's terrible for me. As soon as I'm not clear on my job or my purpose for the day, again, just welcome distractions. Let's go. Let's pretend you're being busy. Let's do it. So I think there's a real art now, and I think it's becoming harder to become productive because simply there's so much information, there's so many distractions. That, like, if you can get yourself into that zone, if you can get yourself to be one of the few kind of top % people that can be focused and not distracted, I think you're going to do really well in business, like especially in the art of creation, like in copy and in just in general, in putting out good content. If you can be that guy. Because whenever there's one big problem, right, there's another big opportunity for other people. So I think there's a chance for people to get ahead in business by being able to push out those distractions, switch off social media, concentrate. So how fucking hard is it to concentrate for the average person these days? It's insanely difficult, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I think if you've got basic concentration skills, actually, like you say, you're going to do better than most other people. And that's probably I think that's where a lot of people want to work for themselves and have the freedom and flexibility. But I'm probably kind of butchering a Jocko Willing quote or someone else that here, but there's that idea there's freedom in having discipline. And if you can stay disciplined with that kind of stuff, that's actually what gives you the real freedom. So for me, with what I do, I've got the flexibility where I could go off on holiday for a week tomorrow and kind of maintain everything with probably half an hour's work a day. But at the same time, actually, I very rarely utilize that freedom. I much more prefer routine. And I think actually having routine and structure, that's why a lot of people really struggle if they go from the corporate world or even something like personal training, where you have to be at a certain place for a certain time with a certain person, same days, every week, all that kind of stuff. It's brilliant at first to have that freedom. But as you say, if you've not got someone else there, whether it's a client, whether it's a boss saying to you, this needs to be done by this time, and you have to do it from this place, whether that's your, like you're in a shared office, you've got your own office, you're doing whatever. Yeah, it's difficult to kind of get your head in the game and think, right, there's no one else breathing down my neck here. So it's up to me to make sure that actually I do the stuff that, let's be honest, can be quite boring.
Absolutely. Freedom poses some challenges, doesn't it? It's, everyone I mean, this was one of your things. I read it on your profile today that, you got into the copywriting job, and to work for yourself, because you wanted the benefit of autonomy, of freedom, to pick and choose, which is cool. But it does throw up, like, you have to, it's almost like the more freedom you have, the more discipline you need if you want to require those results. Because I've coached a lot of guys that have got the freedom. It's just they don't know how to manage their time. They don't know what to do in it, and that freedom ends up being distraction and wasted time. So you've almost got to manage yourself, haven't you? Check in with yourself regularly. I write down my screen time every day, because it can easily just start to spiral into the 2.5, 3 hours, and then you start to question, what the fuck am I doing with not only with my time, what the fuck am I doing with my life? Like, what have I been doing with 2.5, 3 hours on my phone? So it's that constant management. So yeah, I don't know if you've got, like, say, how you've managed to, because you've got a lot of freedom in your work, Mark, haven't you? Like you say, you can go away for 30 minutes. Do you have like these regular check-ins with yourself? Do you have these regular views? Are you the kind of guy that sit there with a pen and paper and journal?
I don't tend to do that sort of stuff, not because I'm against it, just I've never tried it. So I know a lot of people speak of journaling really highly, and to be honest, I probably should give it a go because it may be really useful. The things that I've found helpful have been just probably touching back on that routine aspect. So for me, I know that actually I'm not very good at working from home. It's a bit nuts because I'm sitting in my study now that I had done up about 4 or 5 months ago, and I love it. But if I sit in here, I'm terrible at working from it. So I'll offer, 90% of the time I work from coffee shops, just because I know that if I go to a coffee shop with my laptop, I spend about 90 minutes in one. I've got kind of 3 locally that I can walk to each of them. I tend to have first thing in the morning is one of them. I'll get in there between about 6:30 and 8. I'll come home, have some breakfast, go to another one sort of from 9 till 10:30. Then it's gym time. Then I'm pretty crap at doing anything between about 1 and 3 o'clock, so I don't really do much. If I have calls, they tend to be between about 3 and 5, and then I'll go to one more coffee shop again after that and do another hour and a half work. So yeah, even though I could kind of, as I said, work from anywhere in the country, work at any times I choose, that's probably my routine 4 days out of 5, with a few changes in there if I've got an appointment somewhere or need to go and do something. But yeah, that's kind of how I run my day. And that's not to say that's the best way to do it, but that's just what I find works a routine. And I think subconsciously your brain learns, okay, I'm going to work at this time now, or I'm not going to work at this time now. And yeah, for me, that's been a big thing in terms of being able to stay focused, stay productive, because I know pretty much what I'm going to be doing and where I'm going to be doing it more or less every day.
Yeah, that's crazy. I had a second bedroom in this house, and I tore the bed out and turned it into this awesome office. Nice desks, nice chair. I think I've used it about 3 times, man. I go Costa, and I go to Starbucks, and I go to a local coffee shop, and I don't know what it is. It feels like, right, I'm going in there. I've got, I've bought my nice cup of tea. I'm going in there to do something specific. Whereas, I don't know, at home, it's a bit just too relaxed. It's a bit too freeing. It's like too much freedom. I'm like, no, I want to go into my coffee shops. And I have the same thing. I have 3 coffee shops. Go in there most days, and I love it. It like you said, something just triggers in the brain. You're like, I'm here to do a job. It's enjoyable. It's pleasurable. Because obviously your Instagram handle is the Coffee Shop Copywriter.
Yeah.
Which is cool, man. It's a bit like selling a dream, that like you can, make a living from working in the coffee shop, which is against everything. Like, the self-development books will tell you, distraction and noise and all that. I think that's bullshit. I think you just pick the environment that works for you, man. I think, it sounds pretty cool.
Yeah, I certainly know there are lots of people who can't do that, and I think that's totally fine, and it's not for everyone. But I definitely found over lockdown that actually being at home all the time, I enjoyed being at home a lot less. Whereas now, actually, I'll go out to work and I'll look forward to coming back over lunchtime to sit down and watch some telly and have some food. Yeah. I look forward to coming home in the evening. I don't feel the need to get my laptop out in the evening at all because it's very much separated from home and work. I know that actually it takes me about an hour and a half to get through a coffee at a coffee shop. I enjoy the walk there. I enjoy the walk back. Most of them, it's not a long walk to any of them. It's sort of, well, I'm about 3 minutes from one, and the furthest away is about 12 minutes. But I know that actually a walk can help me clear my head, makes me feel good before I start work. Whereas I think if I was working from home, it might be a bit more convenient. But like I said, I did it for long enough to test it out during lockdown, and just didn't enjoy it. I found that actually most days I tend to enjoy my work. In fact, probably every day I enjoy my work. In lockdown, there are other factors at play as well, but it was certainly, it was not nearly as enjoyable for me.
Yeah, damn it. The first week was awesome. You're not at work. The gym's forced shut. The sun was out. It was, training outside. But yeah, man, it was no good. Certainly not for creativity. I think you need to get out of your own space sometimes. And this is home, man. It's not always a place of work. So same, I've got a 20-minute walk into town along the river. So, get steps in, clear the head, and it's go time. So what's next for you, Mike? Like you've mentioned already, like, you like fresh challenges, and sometimes you get a little bit bored if you do the same thing all the time. So like in terms of your fitness challenges and in terms of your business, like, are you always looking for new things to do and in ways that you can grow personally?
To a degree, I'd say that I'm semi-planned with a lot of stuff. So I tend to have rough ideas and I'll start working towards them. And then if I lose interest, I'm actually not that fussed, really. I'm not the kind of person who feels if they start something, they have to follow through with it. I'll only follow through if I feel that actually it benefits me and I'm still enjoying it to a degree. Like I said, with a lot of the running stuff, actually the training is not enjoyable, but it was always a case that the end outcome I knew would be worth it. But I suppose I break the mold a bit in terms of in business. I don't really set massive goals, as in I always have stuff I want to achieve. So this year I wanted to really make sure that my paid ads funnel was up and running and profitable. So that's my big goal. I wanted to do a relaunch of my print newsletter, a relaunch of my mentoring group, and a one new product as well. So I did all of that. Next year, I think probably going to look at doing one more new product and scaling my ad spend on my paid funnel. And I'll also probably look at doing maybe some sort of in-person seminar as well. And then if that's all going well, I want to get into the property game a bit more as well. So I've got a rental property at the moment, do a bit more of that. But to be honest, that's the extent of my planning business-wise. And then physical challenges wise, I've got 2 more ultras booked in, and then towards the end of next year, I've not decided the full details yet, but I'm looking at doing some sort of hybrid event. So trying to combine lifting and endurance running in the same day. So details to be confirmed, but that's the plan at least. But I'm not one of these guys who sits there and goes, right, on this date at this time, I'm going to have this done, just because personally, I don't feel I need that, really. I think I'm motivated enough that actually I'll kind of make it happen. It might be a month earlier, it might be a month later, but just for me, I tend to find if I want something, I'll kind of do what needs to be done to get it without needing military-like planning.
You considered Ironman?
Considered it. I don't really like swimming, to be honest.
Who fucking does, bro? Who likes swimming in the cold water? Not many people. But I can see your head in there, man, when you've just said that, like the hybrid, just the combination of different activities. And yeah,
it seems to be the way a lot of people go. I've spoken to people who said, I never considered it before, and then I got into it. But at the moment, it's not, I've not bitten a bug, and I've been consuming a lot of endurance content now for about a year. But it's still one of those where I think, yeah, running, cool, I'm on board with that. Cycling, yeah, I could see myself doing that. I don't know if I'd go out every ride wearing Lycra, but I'm sure it could be done. But yeah, swimming just, I don't know, it doesn't massively appeal to me. I used to love it, but yeah, I don't think I've swum in probably about 7 years now. So never say never, but at the moment it's not on the agenda.
How old are you, man?
31.
Oh, dude, you'll be doing Ironman, guaranteed. Guaranteed. It's no man's game. I coach a guy who represents Team GB, 67, I think. He does the half Ironmans now. Everyone says the same thing. Nah, not Ironman, not for me. You know, don't mind a bit of running, don't mind a bit of bike. I'm not swimming. And then before they know it, yeah, they're in these crazy kind of swimming events, doing all sorts of crazy shit. But yeah, I did a cycling challenge and it was horrendous. But the worst part was wearing that horrible Lycra shit. It looked like an absolute plonker. Yeah, I just can't get over the getting dressed up into that and going out every day in the rain. No, it's not for me. I'm a gym guy.
I heard the phrase of it. I think they referred to it as mammal, middle-aged man in Lycra. There's quite a few of those around here. Not that I have anything against Lycra, but if you're in shape and you can pull it off, then go for it.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it looks terrible. But now I'm also the guy that used to take the piss out of people who climb mountains with those walking sticks, and I'd be like, what a dick. And then the last time I went up Scarfell, there's me, 37, with my sticks climbing up the mountain. So I'll probably be the dickhead in Lycra in about 3 or 4 years as well. So yeah, I'm not looking at that because I'm eyeing up a challenge as well now because things are a bit too easy for me. When you just get yourself into good shape. And it's nice because it's like, you don't have to do any stupid challenges anymore. You're not yo-yo dieting, your weight's consistent, you're in decent nick, but there's a part of you that just wants to be tested. And it's hard to know what to do because I was in quite a few challenges. So it's, I think, yeah, it's getting past that grueling thought process of knowing that if you commit something like an Ironman, you're going to have to go out and really do the work, which, let's face it, the thought of it's pretty challenging. But once you get going, I think it's good. You just got to sign up for the event. I think if you think about it too much, like you're never going to do it. So you just sign up for something in 6 months is real. But I think my next challenge will be jumping out of a plane. I know it's not really a physical one, but the thought terrifies me. So I don't know if you've ever done anything like that, but extreme kind of adrenaline rushes I'm starting to get into a little bit.
Never done anything like that, but I'd certainly be open to that kind of thing. And yeah, I'm completely on board on the same page in terms of sign up to something, even if you're not sure you can do it or want to do it. It's certainly, that's what gives you the momentum because, yeah, I think a lot of people stay too much in their comfort zone and that's fine. I've got nothing against people who want to do that, but I do kind of wonder, well, when you are 70 or 80, what are you going to look back and think? And if you can look back and think, actually, I was perfectly happy with that, amazing. But I think a lot of people, you might as well try some stuff like that, even if it's something that's challenging for you, I guess. And as you say, I'd love going to the gym, but the gym just wasn't enough for challenge anymore, really. Even like hitting a PB on something, you just think, oh, that was fine. But at the end of the day, I did it in very sort of safe conditions. No one else really cares about it. No one else really cares about the endurance stuff. I'm aware of that. But, anyone can sort of go to the gym and do some stuff. But it takes a bit extra to sign up for something, put yourself under the pressure. So, yeah, I'm dead on board with anything that scares you slightly, signing up to it and going through the process of then completing it, even if that's doing a 10K, if the thought of running 10K scares you half to death, you go out and do it and complete an hour and 20 minutes. Cool. I think that's amazing. But yeah, more people need to try and do stuff that at least puts a bit of fear into them, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. And this has come up a lot in the last couple of podcasts about, using the word content. So a lot of guys will say, I'm content. They're comfortable. They're not kind of really, flying or pushing themselves. And we know we're going to get to a certain age where we look back. But I did this challenge the last week where I had to come up with the 3 times that I've been in my best like flow state or in the zone. And they were all times of like real discomfort. So, whenever I was, back to the wall, being put under pressure, a challenge, like they turned out to be like the 3 of my highlights. Like I thought, shit, yeah, I had to go through this discomfort. And we all know that like behind that discomfort is usually something rewarding. So this is why I love physical exercise, because there's nothing that can tell you straighter than how it is. Like you're gonna run 124 miles and it's gonna fucking suck. So like you're gonna go through pain, your mind's gonna tell you to give up, your body's gonna want to drop. But like get through that, and the feeling after, and the resilience and the grit that you develop, it's there's no better lesson for me than physical fitness. It teaches you everything you need to know. It teaches you about discipline, about mindset, about you can learn a lot for me that you can apply in other areas of your life. And obviously working with guys who often struggle with mental health a little bit and stuff, I'm like, the first thing that I try and get guys to do if they want to build a bit of grit and a bit of resilience and learn how not to quit, just go lift some weights or go for that, even a walk or that run, and just show yourself that you can push yourself a tiny bit further than you thought you could.
Yeah, I certainly think that we generally live very safe lives now in terms of the way that especially people's employment has changed. And I remember watching a documentary about the rise of all this extreme obstacle racing. And that was the point they made, was that that is now so popular with typically city workers and people in the corporate world, because actually they just don't have the same kind of challenges in everyday life. Like people aren't going down the mines anymore to to kind of bring up coal. Not that I think that would necessarily be the best job choice in the world. There are a few health implications with doing that kind of thing. So I'm not suggesting that we go back to that. But yeah, there are different challenges now, but we certainly have fewer physical challenges and fewer physical dangers on the whole than we used to. So I can see why that stuff is getting popular. And I think that it's always a tough one, because you don't want to tell people you need to do this kind of thing. Like I would never want to say to people, oh, you really have to exercise, because it's not really my place to do it. But I definitely think if you've got people who are feeling a bit lost, a bit disconnected, like unfulfilled, actually 9 times out of 10 taking on some sort of physical challenge, just something that, like we said, something that scares you a bit, that's a pretty surefire way in my mind that you're going to feel better about yourself. Even if the process sucks, like at least you're going to come out the other side probably stronger, probably more in touch with sort of, I don't know the word really, but you're probably going to be a better person ultimately.
It's strange because all the data's kind of showing us that things aren't really getting better for a lot of men right now with mental health and so on. And even, with the COVID situation, there still isn't an urgency to get people fit and healthy and to eat well. And you're like, I get the vaccine thing, I understand it, but, where's the pressure to get yourself fit and to get your body weight under control and to take vitamin D and just to do the basic things that will give you a fighting chance of, fighting off the flu or COVID. But it's strange. The message that is always hammered home is, get the needle. That's fine. But like, once you've done that, you're cool. And it's like, no. Like, there's so much out there to show that, more men kill themselves now than ever. We're severely overweight as a country. I think it's like 67% of people now are overweight. It's just heading in a bad place, man. And it's difficult to know how to get more guys active, because I think a lot of attitude is like, well, why bother? Why bother? This is a short life. Why bother making the effort? And whether it will be an epiphany that comes at the end and you look back and you think, fuck, man, I should have done more, or whether people just generally don't give a fuck as much these days, I'm not sure, man. It's a difficult one to find a solution because we know all the problems.
Yeah, and I would imagine we're very much on the same page in this, in terms of, I don't want the government to come in and mandate exercise or say to people you have to eat a certain number of fruits and vegetables every day, because I think ultimately you should have freedom of choice over that stuff. But at the same time, I very much agree that there's been this emphasis placed, particularly in the last 18 months, well, the last sort of, since, as you say, since the jab came out, if we're using that as an example, that it's a case of maybe not even get this and you'll be fine, but people have not talked about anything else. I mean, the data I saw at one point was saying about how many people were deficient in vitamin D. We know that I think it was like 74% of people, certainly in the States, about 74% of people who died of COVID were overweight or obese, and no one wants to talk about it. Like, I was talking to a mate who's a doctor the other day, and he said they have to ask permission from patients to discuss their weight with them. It's like, that's just nuts. I'm not saying that people talk about fat shaming, and yeah, I'm not in favor of going around pointing a finger at people who are overweight and yelling at them in the street. But at the same time, I think you've got to address health stuff, and you've got to make it okay to talk about that kind of stuff and say to people, actually, you probably would benefit from going for a few runs a week, or if you thought about getting a gym membership, if you thought about losing a few stone. I think that and this maybe is going out to the wider scope of things, but we are in a culture where we're far too worried about offending people. And actually, from a mental health standpoint, again, leaving aside that idea of we don't want to be nasty to people, we don't want to force people to do anything, but is it actually kinder sometimes to be truthful with people and to sort of say it how it is in terms of weight, fitness, exercise? And yeah, we certainly have much too much of an emphasis on cures rather than preventions.
Sure, man. And I like to look at this from an individual point and say, I think it's sometimes kind of to be tough on ourselves. So, if I'm saying, no, Alex, like you're not fucking resting today and tomorrow, you got to do your hour in the gym, fucking get up, go. And, it's tough, but it's kind. So I think, if we're going to apply that attitude to ourselves, which we know is beneficial, like, doing 3 or 4 things a day, good nutrition, fresh air, that we don't always want to do, that we do because it's good for us and it makes us feel better and perform better and be nicer people. Because, it's hard to be nice if you've got no energy and you feel like shit. But then we should probably take that approach as a whole, like, because this censorship thing clearly isn't making any positive strides in any kind of these data stats for mental health. In fact, I think we're just making everyone more fragile and sensitive, and it's just completely insane. It's tough. This is why I can't really see a way out, or I certainly can't see how things are going to get any better anytime soon. So yeah, it's a fucking weird time, man. I'm 37. I've never experienced this where there's a government that says you have to do this.
Yeah, I think that it's weird because most of the people that I know are not sensitive at all. Yet it's almost like there's a small group of society who really want to protect everyone's feelings, which, yeah, to me, that's just a dangerous way to go. And then you get into all the whole like free speech stuff and that kind of thing, which, as you probably know, I'm very much in favor of free speech, even if it offends. I think that's how you come up with good ideas. If there's bad speech, you defeat it with good speech, not by shutting stuff down. But yeah, it's strange that you speak to people, and I don't mind sharing my views on stuff online. If people don't like it, that's fine. We can have a chat about it. I'm always open to talking about stuff. But it's weird that I'll often find I put out something that to me is perfectly common sense, and people are like, oh, thanks for sharing that, because that's exactly what I've been thinking, but I've been too scared to say it. And you're like, yeah, you're thinking the same as probably 80% of people, but there's a small group of society who just want, maybe not even everyone's, but everyone with the same beliefs and opinions as them to be super protected. And again, I'm not in favor of going out and having arguments with people for the sake of it. And I think that you can be, maybe kind isn't the right word, but you can acknowledge people's feelings. And I don't just get into debates for the sake of getting into debates. And if someone says something I disagree with and they're a mate, I might just not even bother kind of taking them up on it. You just sort of move on to another topic. But yeah, I think we need to be more honest with ourselves, and certainly not afraid to kind of say things as they are from a long-term perspective. Like you said, this idea of the worsening mental health stuff, obviously a lot of the stuff that's happened over the last 18 months hasn't helped, but yeah, we need to kind of treat people with a view of long term, even if that means some short-term discomfort, in order to get better in the long run.
Yeah. What I can't understand is, like, your social media page is like your house, right? Like, so if you put something out that I don't particularly like, one, I don't have to view it. I could just unfollow you or even block you or whatever. But it would be like me coming into your house and then telling you what you can and can't say. So I'm like, you're only kind of creating this worse situation in yourself and all this resentment in yourself by opening your eyes and focusing on all the things people are saying that you don't like. It's really unhealthy, man. It's really, really unhealthy. Do you read much, Mike? Like, are you a bookworm or?
I should read more, if I'm honest. I usually have two books on the go at once, like a fiction and a non-fiction one, but it depends how good they are as to how quickly I get through them. So I can quite easily read a book in a weekend if I'm really into it.
Yeah.
Likewise, it can take me 2 months to get through those couple of books. So I probably average about a book a month. I suppose maybe a bit more than that, but yeah, not too much more, I wouldn't say.
There's a book, and kind of the reason why I bring this up is because it's about the topic we're talking about now. It's called Death of Expertise. It's really interesting. It's talking about how everything, even from like a university level and an educational level, is now all about like feelings over facts. Yep. So even from the education system, which you can see it coming through now. Everyone at university is protected. It's more about a business now. So universities are set up to be really accommodating, and bedrooms are separate. Everyone's eating in really nice places. Whereas back in the day, uni used to be a real experience. You go and slum it. You don't know who the fuck you're going to meet. You're going to be eating pasta or baked beans out of a tin. And it was a bit of an education of like how to grow up. You'd move from home and all this thing. And it was, this book was insane. It was saying like families are moving with the kids now so that the kids don't have to be too far apart. And it's just another world, man. I'm like, fuck, I feel old, but you can see how things are changing in such a short period of time. It's fast. It's fast movement.
Yeah, and I think definitions change as well. I mean, I was thinking the other day that this idea of I feel unsafe. And I think we used to say unsafe when there's like a mugger chasing you down the street. That was pretty much how you would feel unsafe. But now it seems to be, if I'm around someone who challenges my views, I feel unsafe. And you're like, really? Sort of, we're losing the definition of words. And again, that's branching out into a bigger topic, I know, and I could sort of rant about that all day. But yeah, I certainly think I've found that as much as I still get on with most of my friends who went to university, there's definitely not a divide between us, but there's definitely been a slightly different approach to kind of how we tackle life compared to, I didn't go to university. I just did college, left at 18, 3 months of PT qualifications, started working for myself at 18 years and about 8 months, I guess, compared to friends who, some of them are still in education. They've gone and done masters, they've done second degrees. Same as me, very early 30s. We have very different outlooks on life, which is no bad thing, but it's certainly been the case that I think sort of having to, I don't want to make the impression of it was all kind of super hard work and I had no support at all, because both my parents were amazing in terms of supporting me, but having to earn your own money from sort of 18, 19 years old, you definitely view the world in a different way to people who've spent sort of 6-7 years in higher education, I would say.
Yeah, definitely, man. I met a guy today, real successful business owner, and he had to sleep in like the phone box for a few nights because he had no money. And I'm like, they're the kind of people I love speaking to, that have been through some real hardship. And, they've become resilient and they're really grateful for what they've got. And they've worked so hard without any form of education, without being gifted anything, no entitlement whatsoever. And it feels like we're going to lose that as well. People seem to feel like they're entitled to certain things now, entitled to education. And university is becoming more about, you don't earn your grades, you pass. If you see it through to the end, you've passed and here's your grade. And let's face it, looks poor on the universities as well if everyone's getting a D or whatever it is, whatever grades they hand out. So it's in favor of everyone short term, that everyone comes out of universities with these degrees. And degrees, you could argue now how much they're worth. I know a lot of people who've got degrees that, one, they're not very happy, and two, they're not in very good jobs if they can find them at all. So it's no guarantee. It's a bit like security now in just a normal job. There isn't much security out there. You could argue working for yourself is now more secure because you've got the autonomy, you've got the freedom, than it is to be in a 9-to-5 job.
Well, you're certainly not going to fire yourself, are you? So there's always that to it. And yeah, I'm trying to think from the sort of friends I grew up with. I think one of them has a job in the field that they got their degree in. The other sort of 8 or 9 who I still hang around with occasionally, they've gone and done something completely different that they could probably have done without having a degree. And that's, I'm aware I don't want to come across as someone who's anti-degree and anti-higher education, because I think that's a bit of a cliche sometimes for someone who's always been self-employed to just say like university useless and you don't need it and it's just a scam to get money off you. I don't think that's the case at all. I think you can have a great experience there. I think for a lot of careers, it's probably worthwhile doing. But yeah, I definitely think that, as you say, it's been devalued. I mean, look at the was it the A level or GCSE results this year, like how much higher they were because they were graded by teachers rather than having to do exams. And you think, I don't think people have got 30% smarter in a year. I think it has got 30% easier. Again, that's somewhat of a cliche where as you get older, you always say, oh, the exams were harder in my day and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, that kind of thing, it's like you do start to wonder really what is the merit in this actually.
Yeah, no, I think there's enough data out there to, where our opinion doesn't matter. I think you do less at uni now, you pay more, you study less, and the grades are going up. So there's something not right about that. But hey, man, working for yourself has its challenges as well, man. I'm sure we've both experienced a lot of them. It can be lonely, it can be challenging. How do you deal with or maybe you love it, like working on your own? Do you like like you say, a bit of an introvert at times? Like, do you like that? Do you like working on your own coffee shops? Would you have it no other way, Mike, or would you like to grow an empire one day, or are you quite happy where you're at?
So I've got a few people I work with in terms of I run a coaching group for copywriting for my program. So whilst it's virtual, we've got 3 guys. So I co-run it with one guy for that part of the business, and we've got a couple of coaches who work with us. So I enjoy kind of that level of stuff in terms of the guys who work for us. They're on a freelance basis, so it's not like we're necessarily responsible for their income, but I've tried having more formal structures before. Don't particularly like that. I don't like being a boss, so to speak. That just doesn't really vibe with me. I still like working in the business. I know a lot of people, for them, they don't like doing that. They want to be doing all the kind of overarching stuff. But for me, I still like writing copy. I still like critiquing copy. I don't really have any grand aspirations to have any sort of empire, really, just because I think that I actually just enjoy what I do. My general goal each year is to increase income about 10 to 20% and reduce my working hours by about 10 to 20%. And if I do that, I'm happy. I think if I worked any less than about 20 hours a week, I'd probably be bored. But yeah, from that side of things, I have no aspirations to have any offices, any big teams, anything like that. And then from the introvertedness side point, I could probably quite happily go a week without talking to anyone, provided I was still around people. So that's kind of why I go to coffee shops, because I couldn't just stay in the house for a week. I need noise, I need goings on. I always go out for multiple walks every day. I like going to the gym. I don't particularly enjoy training at home. So I like being around people. But yeah, for me, I don't find that I need to actively have lots and lots of conversation with people all the time, just because I'm perfectly happy in my own company, really. So do stuff with the girlfriend, but again, I've been on holiday on my own before, taken trips on my own. It doesn't necessarily faze me, really.
It's good. I think everyone should spend some time on their own, man. You learn a lot about yourself when you're on your own and you've only got yourself to speak to. If you can put your phone down for a bit and listen to what's going on inside a little bit, I think it's good exercise, man. So that's pretty cool. Any ambitions of travel now that you've mentioned that? So yeah, I've just come back from Iceland. That was ace. And kind of like you get a taste for adventure, don't you, when you go on holiday somewhere and you're like, oh, I really enjoy this. So have you got anywhere on your hit list, man?
Well, it's been a weird one because this is the longest I've not been abroad, maybe ever. Certainly since the first time, I think probably since I was about 17, 18, this is the longest I've not been abroad for, because we got back, we were actually in New York right before stuff shut down. We got back from New York right at the start of March last year. Still not traveled abroad since then, just because, if I'm honest, I can't be dealing with the hassle of everything, of masks on a plane and tests and paperwork and stuff. So I've just sort of put it off. I would like to go back to the States. Always loved New York before. With vaccine mandates there now to kind of get in gyms and restaurants and stuff, I'm not in favour of a papers, please society. I know that's a whole debate in itself, but for me, I just have no interest in supporting that in any way. So I'd like to go back to the States, but I think it might be a good excuse to see some other bits. Certainly some of like the what I suppose are often referred to as the flyover states, kind of middle America. I think it'd be quite cool to go and see some more of that. Always quite fancy doing some sort of road trip there as well. And I just quite enjoy exploring cities around Europe as well. Like some of the best breaks I've had have been short mini breaks here and there. So yeah, see a bit more of Europe as well. I'd like to visit Eastern Europe a bit more. So yeah, nothing actually planned yet, but I suppose they're the next few bits on the cards, really.
Yeah, New York's next for me. I'm excited. I've always wanted to go to New York, so I'm excited to taste that in Vegas, coming out of retirement and partying in Vegas. I'll probably be one of the oldest guys there, but that's fine. But yeah, I'm looking forward to America. But yeah, Iceland was cool as fuck. It's a bit of a ball ache, yeah, with all the tests before, the test when you get back. But like that was pretty much one of the main reasons I got vaxxed up, so that I could be free to travel. Because like you say, when you create a business that allows you the freedom, it's nice to go off and do things and take a holiday. Still, one of the best things is not having to put a. Do you remember that? Well, you probably won't, but like I don't know if you've experienced. You remember when you had to write a slip for your boss to say, "Can I go on holiday?" I can't fucking imagine doing that now. Can you imagine?
Well, I've never actually had a proper employed job apart from part-time ones, so I never had to do that. But I suppose, yeah, the equivalent would have been doing a holiday form at school, I guess. So yeah, it's just.
Do you reckon you're an employable like me?
Interestingly, I had this discussion with someone yesterday, and I said there would probably be a number to get me back to being employed by someone. What that number would be would depend on what the job was, but I'd say I'm close on unemployable. If it was the right person to work for, doing the right kind of work, and the money was there, I'm certainly not money motivated. But if someone said, look, work this job for 5 years and you'll be set up for life, then I'd probably do it. But yeah, it would take a lot to get me to go into any sort of, certainly corporate setting. I'd say it would take a lot of money and very flexible conditions still to get me to do that.
So let's just say they said, right, 7 figures here for you a year, so a middle a year. I'd still be worried that my soul would get fucking destroyed in that year.
That would have to be 7 figures after tax. If it was before tax, no. After tax, again, it would depend what it would be. As in, if someone said to me, you can go and work at a high-end copywriting agency like like Ogilvy advertising agency, for example, you've got to do a 9 to 5 and it'll be quite stressful, but actually you're working on cool projects with clever people. Yeah, I'd go and do something like that. I think that would be good. But if someone said to me, you've got to go and do something, I don't know, in HR or publications or that kind of thing, just, yeah, you would have to pay me a lot of money in order to go and do that.
Yeah, well, I lasted, I think it was about 4 days at AXA Insurance. That was pretty fucking horrendous. That sucked. I did Tesco though for 5 years. That was all right because I was stacking shelves, so you get to walk about and there's people everywhere and there's music on. So that was actually better than the higher paid office job where you have to put the suit and tie on every morning. That was just hell. So, but have you read about those Chinese nets that they put around the buildings in China to stop people from killing themselves? Have you heard about these? Serious. Where they make iPhones, like the people hate their job so much. This is no joke. You can check it out. They've had to put these nets around because a lot of people are jumping out the window because they just fucking hate their life and hate their job. It's quite common just to fling yourself out a window.
That's pretty nuts. I mean,
it's insane, but you can kind of like, I sit there sometimes and go, if I was in a job that I hated every day, I don't know how I'd face it. I don't know how I'd get myself out of bed genuinely and get myself to work and then be a half decent human being.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those where I had a mate once, he went and had a tour of the Google HQ. And obviously Google have, on the surface, it looks like it's really cool to work there. As in they've got loads of leisure activities, all your food is free, your drinks are free. You're not really tied to working certain hours a lot of the time. They've got all this really cool stuff around the offices. And he said that he was talking to one of the employees and said, what's it like working here? It must be amazing. And she said, actually, it's horrific. So because we're not told you have to stay here all the time, but everything is geared up so you don't need to leave. So she's like, you'll often find yourself, you'll stay overnight because they've got places where employees can stay. or you'll be there at 5 in the morning and you'll work through till 10 at night, and no one else is really going. And there's very much this unwritten rule that you just kind of stay there most of the time and there's no need to leave, which that's obviously just one employee's experience. So I'm not saying that's the same across the board, but that's pretty sinister, really. So yeah.
Let's pretend it is like free food, free drinks, free bed. Yeah, they're setting that shit up. I bet Facebook do a similar thing as well, man. Come on. Yeah. I know Amazon are now, like, their staff have to run, like, when there's an order, like, there's a time limit between, they have to literally now run, get the item, and then boom, run back. And, like, apparently if you don't get it, like 3 strikes and you're gone, man. It's brutal. But, like, you can see how these companies make, so, like, they're dominating the frigging world. So they must have something working right behind the background. But dude, can you imagine doing that for a living now? After working for yourself, like, I don't think you can go back.
No, certainly not something like that. I think if you had a position where you had a bit of authority, and if it's something you're interested in, like a few years ago, I was offered the chance to apply for a position at there's a big direct response company called Agora. And I mean, doing something like that, you work with literally some of the best copywriters in the world. I did think about it for a bit. If I'm honest, it was moving to Baltimore that put me off. I think maybe if it was moving to a kind of a cooler city, I might have considered it, but that it would have to be something like that for me. I think where you know that you're going to come out the other end of it with a load more experience, with the potential to earn more money for yourself as well because of the rapid skill development you've got. But certainly just something, just typical like paperwork or doing something very mundane. Yeah, I think you'd certainly have to, maybe if you had an interesting enough life outside of it, you could make do with that. But yeah, give me the freedom to kind of work from whenever, or work from wherever and whenever, earning a bit less money. And yeah, I'll take that any day of the week.
Yeah. I think that I went through a real tough time in my business when I was 28, 29, even 30, where I was actually thinking, am I cut out for this? Would I like to just go back to the 9 to 5 job? But where you clock out at 5 and then you don't have to work, you don't have to think about it. But I think it'd be really bad, man. I mean, I don't know about you, but I think I could see myself hitting that Friday night thing and then being one of those guys who goes down the pub Friday, goes out on a Friday and just literally lives for the weekend, just wants that Friday afternoon to come. And yeah, I don't think I'd go back there. My mindset's not up for it. But I think once you've tasted the autonomy and freedom of working for yourself, because you can upskill your own skill. I still love challenging my skills now. So I'm forever in a program or reading or trying to develop and grow. Not necessarily the business, but my skills in it. I think the moment you just sit still, like you say, it's a dangerous place to be when you get really content and you're really, really comfortable. And that's really easy to do, man. You can stay there for many, many years. And I think that the longer you stay there, the harder it is to get going again. But I think having a job that doesn't give you any fulfillment, it's quite a sad life. But I understand people get trapped into mortgages and bills and kids. It's a hard cycle to get out of, isn't it?
Well, I think we're sort of sold this idea of what your life should be like. And there's a lot of pressure, probably going back to what we talked at the start, that relates back to social media in terms of, I need to have this car and I need to have this type of house and my house needs to look a certain way and my kids need to, they have to wear clothes from Next. They can't have, cheap clothes. Doesn't matter that, and I say this, full disclosure, not having kids. So this is just my opinion as a non-parent, but the kid's going to be sick on 5 different tops every day, but we've still got to get them a top from Next. We can't get the kids cheap stuff, really. And even down to sort of the type of dogs people get. You look at how much money people pay for designer dogs now. There's very much this pressure to have, or for your life to look a certain way. And I think that forces people into, as you say, doing stuff that maybe they don't really want to do, but they have those responsibilities. They've put their expenses so high that they have to maintain a certain income level. And actually that forces them then to stay in something that really they hate, which is quite sad, really. And you can weigh that up. Maybe there are people who actually having the slightly nicer car, having the slightly nicer clothes, being able to go out to slightly nicer restaurants, maybe that's worth the trade-off. But I'd take a good bet that actually there's a lot of people out there who would probably be happy if they reduce their outgoings, stop trying to keep up with everyone they see on social media, and did something they enjoyed a bit more.
This is the exact conversation I had with someone today. Exact conversation. So one of my goals is actually not to have any bills other than my mortgage, because like that sounds like, well, that's no big deal. But like you say, when business starts to go well, you do get the more expensive car lease. You do go for those options, and all of a sudden you've got these handcuffs around you that are like, well, you can't not earn that kind of money now because you've got that 3-year lease. You've got the 2 extra bedrooms in the house that you probably didn't need. And life is so much more freeing and more pleasurable when you don't have those stresses, because then you've got the freedom to pick and choose what you do a little bit more. Like you say, if you don't want to work today, you don't have to. And if you can have that lifestyle where it's pretty low maintenance, which is doable, by the way, like it's hard work. Ego plays a big role in this. So I've just exchanged cars, and it was a big deal because it's like an 11-year-old car that I've got. But I wanted that. I kind of like anything that's material. Like I don't want to have too much attachment to it, because if it's got a grip over me, it means I've got to work harder and longer to pay for those material things that, let's face it, don't really mean much, especially when we get to the end. They're going to mean fuck all, in fact. So I think you've got to be careful about what you own, because what you own owns you often.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think it's a refreshing approach, that, Mike, to really strip back to the basics, see if you can live on a low-level income, and then there might not be the amount of pressure to smash in that overtime or do the job that you don't like, or you might be able to go part-time and do other things, man. Like life's not just about going to work.
Yeah, and I'll be fully transparent. I mean, I do have a car that I really like, and it's much beyond what I need. We've got a house that's bigger than what we need, but then I think also you pick other stuff. So I very rarely buy any new clothes. I only buy new clothes if I throw something else away and it needs to be replaced. We don't eat out at fancy restaurants. I'm not a non-drinker, but I might have a drink every 18 months. So there's never any money spent on booze, for example. Tech and gadgets, only buy them when I need them. So I think you have to work out what does actually make me happy. Cool, I'll spend some money on that. I think it might have been Ramit Sethi I was listening to said that he has, I think it's 3 levels of budget. But he basically has a budget for stuff that like he loves, and it's almost money's no object with that, as in if he can afford it, he'll buy it. Right down to stuff that if he literally doesn't care about it, he'll buy the cheapest thing possible. So I would say 90% of the food shop we do is cheapest own brand stuff, just because for me, I don't really know to taste difference. And if it saves you 15 quid a week by doing that, I mean, that's what, 750, 800 quid a year. Cool. That's saved money. Why would you bother buying something that actually you don't really care about?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's different. Like you say, if you hate what you're doing and the money funds this extravagant lifestyle, it's different. But I think if you love what you're doing and the money's there and you're not complaining about your life or your hours or your soul isn't being destroyed, then fucking go for it. Like, knock yourself out, buy what you want. Like you say, everyone has their thing. So like I've got hundreds of books, dudes, that I spend shitloads of money on Amazon every month. My money will be going into holidays now, so it will still be spent. It's just, I think, it's how we earn it. If we're earning it in a purposeful way, then it's more enjoyable to spend. But when we're spending it on things that are not making our life better, if we're suffering, it is not good. Dude, you've just referenced food, and I know you told me that you had your dinner ready at 7:30. Well, yeah, I know your dinner might be ready at 7:30, waiting for you. So first thing I want to know is, what have you got for dinner?
I've got some sort of burgers, so like jalapeno burgers or habanero burgers or something.
Yeah, jalapeno burgers, they're nice.
Yeah, so I'm on a tiny bit of a deficit at the moment, so I've just got them in one thin. Usually I have like 2 thins and just some veg just to get my greens in. So nothing overly fancy, but yeah.
You on the shred? You on the shred, are you, Mike?
I want a slight, I'd call it a mini cut, I suppose. So just sort of 6 weeks, just because my running volume is a bit lower at the moment, just because of doing the big one 6 weeks ago. It's still sort of building back up a bit. And to be fair, activity's high anyway. So a cut for me is still about 3,000 calories a day. So it's not terrible, really.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of like 3,000 keeps me pretty trim, but I'm on a little bit of a mini cut as well, because I'm a monster at Christmas, basically. So if I go in slightly out of condition at Christmas, I will be very out of condition by Boxing Day. So sorry, Mike.
I was going to say that's why I'm doing my one now, because I spoke to the guy sort of plans my nutrition for me, and it's like we should probably do a mini cut just about 6 to 8 weeks. I was like, right, that's fine, but I'm not doing anything like that in December, so let's get out of the way now.
Dude, life's too short to sit there. Anyone who counts calories on Christmas Day, get a fucking life, man. It's like, yeah, just I say to all my clients, don't start the Christmas eating now. Like, it's November the 3rd. I've got one lad who's talking about eating mince pies now. I'm like, dude, Christmas is like fucking 7 weeks away. Like, if you start putting on the fat now, you're going to be in trouble, man. This is how people gain ridiculous amounts of fat over a number of years. So yeah, my theory is go into Christmas, lean as hell, get to Christmas Eve, turn into an absolute pig for about 3 days, consume as many freaking calories as you can, and then get straight back to business, man. That's what works for me. I like my Christmas food. I certainly don't want to be penalised. Yeah.
No, I'm on board with that. That seems like a pretty smart plan to me.
There you go. We've just sorted out people's diet plans for them, Mike. Mark Samuels, it's an absolute pleasure, man. I think you're a great guy. I really like what you do. You're, like I say, probably one of like 2 people who I follow on Instagram and actually follow. I think your material is great. Just remind people where they can find you. Do it's the Coffee Shop Copywriter.
So I think it's _coffee shop _copywriter. I'll probably double check that actually, and I probably should know off the top of my head, but yeah, the _coffee shop _copywriter, or just Mike Samuels on Facebook. Just feel free to add me. I'm always happy to answer questions. If you want to be on my email list, I can add you on. So yeah, that's probably the best way.
Yeah, well, there's a bit of script just come across the bottom now. Nicole, who works inside the Better Man for us, does these amazing setups with all the scripts on, and I always forget to click the button. So now we're just introducing you to everyone 1 hour and 20 in. By the way, that's an impressive stat at the bottom there. Work with businesses over the world, combined wealth of $167 million and counting. And I think that might be not an old stat, but I don't think it's very, very, very recent, is it?
I think I stopped counting a few months back, really, just because it was
getting stupid.
It was kind of difficult to keep tabs on as well, just of working with old clients and stuff. So I thought, I mean, I could validate that, and I was happy with that, and that felt like it was kind of enough for social proof, really. So I've sort of stuck with that figure.
Cool. Well, maybe one day, man, you or your team can help me bump those figures up and help me with my copywriting, because my ability to even attempt to do any half decent copy is, I'm not the best copywriter, dude. So you might be getting a message from me saying, Mike, please help. Dude, that was an absolute pleasure, man. Thanks for your time. I know you're a bit busy guy, and like I say, I really appreciate you doing this. So it was really cool, man. Thank you.
No worries. Sorry, had a great time. Really enjoyed it, mate. So yeah, appreciate it.
Cool. Mike Samuels. Super fucking cool, dude. Thanks, bro.